Today, we're going to talk about someone truly amazing, Katherine Johnson. She was a mathematician whose brain, literally, helped launch America into space. She was the one who did the math that got us to the stars. But to really understand how she got that incredible responsibility, you have to ask yourself one simple question. I mean, really think about it. It's a question we're dealing with right now, with AI and self-driving cars. But just imagine for a second, it's 1962, you're an astronaut, and you're about to be strapped to the top of a giant rocket. The machine in question is a brand new, room-sized IBM computer. Now, yeah, it was a marvel of technology, but it was also famous for having glitches and blackouts. And we're not talking about a bug that makes your screen freeze. We're talking about a bug that could cost you everything. And those were the words of astronaut John Glenn, right before he became the first American to orbit the Earth. He wasn't talking about some other computer or a backup system. Nope. He was talking about Katherine Johnson. He trusted her brain more than he trusted the machine. So who was this woman? How did her mind become the most reliable, most trusted instrument in the entire American space program? To understand how she earned that incredible trust, we've got to go back, way back, to the beginning. Because even as a little girl in West Virginia, Katherine Johnson wasn't just good with numbers. She was a flat-out prodigy. Just look at this timeline. It's kind of nuts. She started high school when she was only 10 years old. At a time when public schools for African-American kids in her area stopped after 8th grade, her family literally moved so she could keep learning. She finished high school at 14 and graduated from college with the highest honors at just 18. Her talent was so obvious, so undeniable, that one of her mentors, a brilliant mathematician named Dr. W. Schieffelin Clater, literally created advanced math classes just for her. He taught her something called analytic geometry, which is the exact kind of math you need to describe curves and flight paths in space. Talk about foreshadowing, right? This was the precise toolkit she was going to need to chart a course to the moon. So after a little while working as a teacher, her incredible skill with numbers landed her a job in 1953 at NACA, the agency that would eventually become NASA. But she wasn't an engineer, not officially. Her job title was something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction today. She was a computer. Yeah, that's right. Before we had silicon chips and processors, computers were people. Overwhelmingly, they were women who did these incredibly complex, tedious calculations by hand, day in and day out. Johnson joined what was called the West Area Computing Unit, which was an all-black group of female mathematicians. These women were the secret engine behind America's race to the skies. But let's be real about the situation. This was a deeply segregated workplace. The colored computers, as they were called, had to work in a completely separate office. They had to use separate restrooms, separate dining facilities. Everything was separate. They were doing the same brilliant, essential work, but they were kept apart. And it wasn't just about the physical separation, there was also a kind of professional invisibility. Think about this. Even when their calculations were the very foundation of a research study, women in her division were never, ever credited as authors on the final reports. Their work was essential, but it was also anonymous. But Katherine Johnson, well, she was assertive. She wasn't shy. She would ask questions. She would ask, why aren't the women in the briefings? And she pushed to be included. And you know what? It worked. A male colleague was leaving for a new job, and before he left, he told their boss that Katherine had to be the one to finish the report, because honestly, she'd done most of the heavy lifting anyway. So, in 1960, for the very first time in their division, a woman's name was credited on a research report, and that name was Katherine Johnson. That breakthrough could not have come at a better time. NASA was turning into NASA, the space race with the Soviet Union was getting serious, and Katherine's unique skills were suddenly more critical than ever. She was pulled out of the computing pool and put right into the heart of the action, the Flight Research Division. So when we say she calculated the trajectory for Alan Shepard's flight, what does that even mean? Well, it meant using all that advanced geometry to map out a path through space. She had to account for gravity, the Earth's rotation, everything. It meant figuring out the exact perfect moment to launch, and maybe most importantly, she had to calculate precisely where his little capsule would splash down in the middle of a huge ocean so the Navy could actually find him. She did all of this by hand. And all of that leads us to the moment that really made her a legend. Okay, it's 1962. America is about to send a man into orbit for the first time. This mission is way more complex, way more dangerous than Shepard's little hop into space. So NASA had these new IBM computers, right? They were super powerful, but they were also new and, well, kind of unpredictable. The astronauts, especially John Glenn, were pretty nervous about trusting their lives to a machine that was known to have a bad day every now and then. So John Glenn basically added something to his own pre-flight checklist. He made a request that is now famous. He said, "Get the girl to check the numbers." He wanted Katherine Johnson to run all the same orbital equations that the big IBM machine had just spit out, but he wanted her to do it by hand. Her answer was the final go for launch. Her mind with the ultimate backup system. And her work did not stop there, not by a long shot. She helped figure out the critical path for the Apollo 11 lunar module to meet up with the command module. When Apollo 13 had its famous emergency, her backup charts were essential in getting that crew home safely. She even kept working on the space shuttle program. I mean, her fingerprints are all over the history of American spaceflight. After a 33-year career, Katherine Johnson's impact is, well, it's impossible to overstate. She didn't just do the math. She helped build our confidence in the very idea of space travel and the technology that makes it possible. And remember how, in the early days, women weren't even allowed to put their names on reports? Well, she went on to author or co-author 26 of them. She wasn't just a calculator, she was a research scientist whose work was pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Eventually, the nation really started to recognize her incredible contributions. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Congressional Gold Medal. NASA even named its main computational research building after her. The hidden figure was finally and rightfully in the spotlight. And, through all of it, the segregation, the barriers, the unbelievable pressure of calculating life or death equations, her passion for the work just never faded. For 33 years, she said she loved the challenge, she loved the numbers, and she just loved going to work every single day. Katherine Johnson's story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Her genius was almost overlooked, hidden by the barriers and prejudices of her time, and it leaves us with this really important question to think about. How many other pioneers in science and everywhere else are still out there, just waiting for their stories to be told?